Have you ever wondered why your life feels the same, yet something deep inside tells you it has already changed? That quiet dissonance is not confusion. It is the opening. You are standing at a threshold invisible to the eye, but undeniable to the heart. Nothing around you seems to have shifted. The people, the places, the routines all look unchanged, and yet they no longer fit. They no longer hold you the way they once did. This is not collapse. This is transition. The subtle weight in your chest, the fog across your thoughts, the pull to abandon rules you once clung to. These are not accidents. They are invitations. The universe rarely shouts. It speaks in restlessness, in the silence between your thoughts, in the strange feeling that another version of you has already stepped forward, leaving you scrambling to catch up. You try to explain it away with logic, with schedules, with reason. But in the quiet, it grows heavier. Not louder in sound, but in presence, in gravity, in inevitability. You know something has begun. This is no ordinary unease. It is a shift in frequency, a soft dissolving of the old world that once felt like home. Reality doesn't collapse with violence, it releases with silence. What you are feeling is the sacred space between endings and beginnings. It is the void, not as emptiness, but as a cradle, the place where your next self is already forming. Most run from this place. They call it stuck. They panic in the silence. They try to fix what was never broken simply because it no longer feels familiar. But you're still here, listening, which means you already know. This is not the end. This is the initiation. The life you built was designed for a version of you that has already passed. And the self you are becoming is speaking, not with demands, but with resonance, with a frequency that whispers, you do not need chaos to change. You do not need collapse. You only need to be still enough to notice what has already shifted. The change isn't on its way. It is here, now. You are not waiting for life to begin. You are standing in the exact moment it already has. And yes, the old world will try to seduce you with comfort, to pull you back into its arms of familiarity. But once you've seen beyond it, you can never truly return. Everything that once felt like shelter will start to read like a map of the past. Objects, rituals, words that used to steady you will now feel tight, small, limiting. This is not a flaw in you. It is the body recalibrating, an unlearning of survival patterns so a softer intelligence can take residence. Your nervous system is unspooling habits it carried for years. Allow it room to unwind. Watch without judgment as old reflexes soften. Do not mistake the tremor for truth. Sensations are messengers, not final verdicts. Discomfort is not a sentence. It is information. When your inner rhythm accelerates beyond your current circumstances, tension appears as a compass pointing toward realignment. This is the field stretching to meet a new possibility. Your higher self has already leaned forward, and the rest of you is catching up. The shifts are ordinary in their timing. In the sink full of plates, on the commute, in the silent pause between tasks. These moments are not accidents. They are signposts of alignment assembling beneath the surface. If you have been waiting for an external miracle, notice how readiness itself becomes the true catalyst. Awareness matters. Recognition collapses potential into form. When you name the change, you quicken it. Watching your life with tenderness allows energy to find shape. So breathe. You are not lost, delayed, or defective. You are expanding into a timeline that already holds the version of you you sense. Some people will not travel with you, and that is part of the passage. This separation is not punishment. It is evidence that your internal pitch has shifted and others remain tuned differently. There will be quiet grief for what once fit easily, a mourning that honors the part of you that learned to belong. These apparent losses are actually evidence of realignment. What you attract and tolerate will begin to change as your inner coherence tightens. Think of it as tuning. Coherence gathers what matches you. Decoherence releases what no longer serves. When your inner rhythm drifts too far from the world around you, the harmony begins to fracture. It shows up as fatigue, restlessness, boredom, even loneliness. But this is not punishment. It is resonance creating space for the reality that truly matches your frequency now. In this in-between phase, the universe does not test you with noise, but with silence. You may hear people say, "You've changed." They may ask what's wrong, or project concern where none is needed. It is not that something is broken, it is that your transformation unsettles the ground beneath their feet. Growth ripples outward. When one heart begins to shift, the entire system feels the tremor. Your evolution becomes a mirror, and not everyone is prepared to face what they have avoided in themselves. So what do? You breathe, you anchor, you keep walking, you refuse to shrink, to apologize, to dilute your becoming. This path may feel quieter, sometimes lonelier, but it is magnetic. Because once your vibration aligns with a higher timeline, the field bends. Coincidence folds into synchronicity. Doors appear where walls once stood, and the right souls find you. Paradoxically, the more you grow, the less visible you may seem to your old world. And yet in that invisibility, you become radiant to the world that has been waiting for your real self all along. Not the curated mask, but the self that honors silence, depth, and expansion without explanation. That self is already emerging, weaving a new ecosystem built not on reputation, but on resonance. Quantum change begins not in appearances, but in vibration. Your consciousness shifts to a new frequency, and suddenly the old reality cannot hold you anymore. This is why connections fade, passions dissolve, paths lose meaning. The mismatch grows unbearable. It is not madness, it is awakening. Your soul remembers what the mind once silenced just to belong. Now it is time to listen. You do not need every voice to understand you. You need to understand yourself, to honor the quiet truth rising within. The knowing that says, "I'm not lost, I'm shedding." This is your permission, not from me, but from the field itself. Permission to walk in reverence even when no one claps. To trust that alignment ripples outward in ways unseen, shaping worlds others will only recognize when they are ready. You were never meant to be what makes sense. You are here to be what resonates. And when you turn to look at your past through quantum eyes, you will see it differently. Not as a chain, but as raw material. Every scar, every detour, every heartbreak was not wasted. They were initiations, each one carving the vessel that could hold the self you are now becoming. When life's pressure felt like breaking, it was actually shaping clay. The events you once named failure were the kiln, intense heat that hardened your edges and made you durable. The field is not moral, it simply mirrors contrast and momentum, folding what seemed like defeat into the architecture of your becoming. If you turn toward your history with awake eyes, the ruins rearrange into a map. Not a graveyard of mistakes, but a constellation of clues. Each loss a landmark, each wrong turn a lesson in orientation. The unbearable threads, the betrayals, the dead-end jobs, the nights of doubt. We're all braiding the rope that would pull you upward. Alignment is not about changing circumstance first. It is about a subtle retuning. Your inner instrument finding a new pitch so the world that matches it can assemble. Often the quickest way to sit in a higher register is to burn away lower harmonics until only the true note remains. See your past as training rather than punishment. Every time you settled, avoided, or compromised, you were secretly practicing contrast, learning what to refuse when clarity arrived. So when alignment finally lands, you recognize it at once, without self-sabotage, with the seasoned calm of someone forged through trial. The universe moves at the pace of who you can become, not at the pace of what you want delivered. Delays and detours were not obstacles, but classrooms, each lesson refining your capacity to hold a larger life. Even shame and procrastination were information. Where fear lived, where worth was missing, where safety had been mistaken for life. Breakdown is a language of deconstruction, not annihilation. As incoherent scaffolding unwinds, space opens for structures built from sovereignty instead of survival. What looks like falling apart is the careful dismantling of a stage built for someone you no longer are. You have not been lost, you were rehearsing. The timeline you feared was wasted was actually a spiral of preparation, cultivating energetic maturity for a quantum leap. Call what felt wasted a gestation. Quiet, unseen work beneath the surface that ripens into readiness. There already exists in the field a version of you that required all this contrast to be born. That emergence is not distant. It is occurring now, in the invisible choreography of your attention and surrender. This remembering is evidence that the past was not punishment, but programming. Codes laid into you so you could carry the next octave of yourself. When you read your story with this lens, regret softens and reverence grows. Every scar becomes a relic of initiation. Every detour a corridor that taught you direction. Every void a workshop where you learned to listen. You are not undone. You are being reassembled into fidelity with your true frequency. There is a deeper code weaving through you, the quiet software of your becoming. And as you sit with these words, you may notice that truth beginning to settle into your body, not as noise, but as resonance. The universe rarely shouts its instructions. It moves through the subtle friction of restlessness, not to warn, but to invite. That unsettled feeling is not anxiety, it is recalibration. The signs have been circling you for years. You are simply ready now to read them. Every transformation carries a phase that feels more like fog than breakthrough. You walk into familiar rooms and everything looks the same, yet none of it feels quite right. Nothing is broken, but everything feels misaligned. That is the whisper, the soft compass of your future self guiding you through curiosity rather than command. The whisper never argues, never insists. It drifts through overheard phrases, sudden impulses to clear space, the reappearance of old memories. It enters your dreams, the numbers that repeat, the tightness in your chest when you pretend you're fine. Most people turn away, afraid it might be real, afraid it might cost them the comfort they've built. But you are not here for safety. You are here for truth. And truth does not knock down doors. It waits patiently until you are willing to open them. That quiet hunger you've been carrying is not random. It is your timeline speaking, the one already alive in the field, the one where you are whole, free, unmasked. Resonance makes itself known like two strings vibrating in harmony. The closer you lean into it, the stronger it grows. You begin to feel it in pauses, in the second before making the same old choice, in the questions that suddenly arise uninvited. The more you sit with the whisper, the heavier its presence becomes, not in sound, but in gravity. It colors your days until ignoring it feels impossible. Discomfort is not here to punish. It is here to unfasten you from timelines that no longer match. You cannot outgrow what still feels cozy. That is why the whisper grows louder in silence, because permission always precedes transformation. So if you have been waiting for a sign, let this be the one. Not a demand to fix yourself, but an invitation to return to yourself. Not to begin again, but to begin aligned. The next version of you is not sculpted in public. It is formed in silence, through sacred micro-decisions where resonance outweighs routine. Each time you choose the whisper over the noise, another possibility collapses into form. That is not just poetic, that is physics. Reality responds not to words, but to vibration. And when you declare with your own being, I am no longer available for what doesn't align, you broadcast a new signal to the field. That signal reshapes who enters your orbit, what opportunities open, what future converges. This choice does not need to be grand. It only needs to be sincere. One subtle yes to what you have already been hearing in the quiet is enough to shift the tide. Because the whisper was never meant to make logical sense, it speaks in the language of the soul, knowing without evidence, recognition without proof. And if you dare to follow it, you do not just change your circumstances, you change your timeline. The irony of awakening is that the closer you move to the self you have always longed for, the more fear you feel. Your chest tightens, your breath shortens. Part of you wants to run back to what you knew. But that fear, it is not a red flag. It is a signal, not of danger, but of passage. Not an order to stop, but the preface to a reality folding itself into being. In physics, there is a strange allowance called quantum tunneling, particles slipping through barriers that seem impermeable. Spiritually, the same mystery plays out. When the heart decides, walls thin, matter shifts, and timelines rearrange in service of a resolved intention. The fear you feel is simply friction between the worn pattern you know and the new rhythm that's arriving. It tugs like an old tether whispering, "Stay, remain where you can predict every step." That voice is your old identity trying to preserve its architecture, not a map of what must be true. How do you know you're at the lip of a jump? The alarm is subtle. It no longer rages. It sits heavy and persuasive, wrapped in logic. Maybe later, maybe not yet. Those are not wise cautions, but inertia masquerading as prudence. They appear loudest when the leap is nearest. Your new timeline is not conjured from scratch. It is tuned into. To tune is to clear static. Let the echoes of past doubts, the hum of assumed control, the sediment of fear fall away. When fear rises, breathe into it. Learn to recognize it as the thin membrane between what was and what will be. The closer you move through, the thicker the membrane feels. You were not designed to shatter at thresholds. You were designed to pass through them. Quantum transitions do not demand certainty. They demand coherence. Vibrate as if the outcome already exists because, in the field, it does. The version of you living this new reality is already active, sending subtle signals back through time and intuition. As you approach, the world tests alignment. Friendships drift to reveal who truly resonates. Opportunities appear like flashes to measure trust. Your body and sleep recompose in response. This is not collapse, it is calibration. Your whole system is fine-tuning to a higher pitch, and anything out of tune will naturally fall away. Let the habits loosen, let the roles soften, allow the distractions to erode in their own time. Rising through the fear is not abandoning life, it is reclaiming the life you were encoded to live. This trembling, terrifying, electric edge is what choosing with your field feels like, not merely with words. If fear sits with you now, be glad, for it means you are near. You are no longer revolving in the same circle. You are pressing gently against the seam between timelines. The seam is thinner than it seems. Feel the fear and move anyway, with trust, with presence, with quiet conviction. This is not a passing phase. It is a portal. On the other side waits not answers, but alignment. In the moments ahead, we will close this journey with a truth most miss, one that will make the trembling make sense. The shift is not on a timetable. It already happened, and now your work is remembering. If you want to anchor this change with steady practices and gentle precision, there is a way to hold the new vibration longer and clearer. We carry a lie that transformation lives somewhere ahead, behind one more book, one more lesson, one more divine signal. But the true movement often arrives quietly, like dawn pressing its light under the door. You wake into it before you can name it. This unrest, the ache that's been pacing your days, is not a promise of what might come. It is proof that the field has already begun to rearrange. You may still be in the same rooms, performing the same roles, yet inside a fresh frequency is taking root. You have consented at a level beneath planning, and the universe responds to that consent, not to your timetable. The outer world need not change immediately for your inner world to have shifted. The container is different even if the furniture looks familiar, so do not wait for fireworks. Expect a slow recomposition, thoughts that soften, choices that clarify, a quieter tone when you speak to yourself. This is not acceleration of events, but stabilization of frequency. The more you embody the new pitch, even in small decisions, the more reality adjusts to hold it. Remember, the leap is not a single moment, but a recalibration of being. Walk it out with patience and ritual. Tend the seedling of your new self rather than demanding its full bloom overnight. The external will align as your interior coheres. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. Holding the vibration before the evidence appears. Trusting the frequency before it reshapes the world around you. Knowing that reality bends not to effort, but to embodiment. So let me ask you, if your new timeline is already alive, how would you choose today? Would you keep waiting for permission? Would you keep feeding the stories that hold you small? Or would you breathe deeper, speak with more clarity, and release what no longer carries you, even if it feels comfortable? You don't need to have it all figured out. You're allowed to arrive trembling, unfinished, imperfect, and still present, because the shift is not about polish. It's about presence. It's about becoming more real than your fear, more coherent than your chaos, more trusting than your doubt. And here's your invitation. Don't just let this be another moment you scroll past. Anchor it, speak it into the field, comment below, I choose alignment. Write it not for me, but for you, for the version of you that has been waiting for a signal of courage. Because the shift is not coming someday, it's here now. And the only thing left is for you to step into it fully.